All right, so next up we're going to test the reactivity of our alkaline earth metals. Two of those. We've got magnesium and we've got calcium. So first things first, here is our magnesium. It is in a ribbon form. So this is magnesium that's been pounded down into these tiny little strips. They're super malleable, really easily bendable. Again, you can kind of see a little bit of like scuffing on the outside. This is because this one again reacts with oxygen, but that silvery part is the magnesium. So I'm going to take this magnesium and I'm going to put it into a little test tube. And I'm going to pour some DI water into that test tube and allow it to just kind of sit. So if we take a look at this, immediately, do you notice any sort of reactivity? There's no fizzing really. There's no color change. There's no fire. There's no smoke. So I'm going to let this one sit for a little bit. Get all that little air bubbles out from there. I'm going to let that sit in that beaker right over here off to the side. And then we're going to test calcium as well, which is also a group 2 metal. But while I'm doing that, I'm also going to set up our group 3 metal, aluminum. So here's what our aluminum looks like. It's this little piece right there. I'm going to set this one up so we can put it next to the magnesium so we can kind of track reactivity at about the same time period. So I'm going to take this aluminum and again, drop it into a test tube, fill it with some water. Take a look at that, any initial reaction. No color change, no light produced, no heat produced. No precipitate formed, no explosion. All right, so we're going to take this and we're going to sit it with the magnesium right there. Okay, so I'm going to let those sit and I'm going to get calcium ready. So let me grab myself a little piece of calcium here. Okay, so the calcium that I actually have in the lab has pretty reacted with oxygen as well. You can see it right there. So it has formed a coating on the outside. Calcium is actually a pretty shiny silver metal as well. If I take this and try to scrape a little bit off, you might be able to see it. Scrape. Only thing here is that it does get really, really hot when we do this. So I have to be super careful. Scrape off some of that calcium oxide, and then again, it's going to immediately start reacting with the oxygen in the air again. Okay, I scraped a tiny little bit. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but it's got a little bit more shine to it than it did before. So there's our little calcium right here. So I'm going to start by putting some water into our test tube. I'm squirting it all over my lab bench. All right, now I'm going to take a couple of those pieces of calcium and I'm going to drop it into my test tube and we'll make some observations of it. My test tube is here in the ring stand and a test tube clamp. These are a couple new pieces of lab equipment that we've seen. All right, here's my calcium and I'm gonna drop these in. Here we go. That white substance forming, you can hear it. There's some gas being produced. All right. If I take my hand and I stick the back of it next to this test tube, ooh, feels real warm. Feels really warm. If I touch it, ooh, yeah, that's hot. So lots of heat produced in that one. Okay, if I come back to these little metals right here, I'm not seeing too much going on. I am seeing a little bit of bubbles that are starting to form on the magnesium. Let me take this one out here. Might be able to see, it's really hard to see on here. There's a little bit of bubbles that are forming, and these are not due to air bubbles. These are bubbles that are coming off the magnesium. So it is reacting with water, but it's only got tiny, tiny little bubbles on there. Not too much of a vigorous reaction.